June 21st, and we are about to cap yet another fabulous week of conversations on the Sportsline Podcast. Really appreciate the excellent feedback and suggestions that you've been sending, as it will make us better. Glad you've joined us. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Today on the pod, a Western New York native that has long been a household name in Steeltown on and off the field. He was a record-setting prospect out of St. Francis in Hamburg, New York, that made his mark as a member of the Cornell Big Red football team. As you know, Luke Tasker, a star receiver, and in 2013 made the move north of the border, and like his famous farmer, became a consistent, productive, and reliable member of the Hamilton Ticats as a wide receiver. Following an outstanding playing career, Luke tested the local TV market, became an assistant coach, and learned real estate. In addition, and currently, he's the game day analyst alongside RJ Broadhead on the Ticats Audio Network. Well, Mr. Lucas Steele Tasker. I didn't know the real name. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sportsline Podcast.
Hey, Bubba, thanks, man. It's great to be here. And yeah, Steele. I was destined from birth to be to find my way to Steeltown. It's actually an old family name, but yes, my middle name's Steele, and my son's first name is Steele as well.
Beautiful things. Hey, and let's talk about that before we get into all the other kinds of things that went on in your career. Your journey to the Canadian Football League, an interesting one. You had a little tryout with the San Diego Chargers, I believe. How did you decide or make that decision to come to Canada?
I signed with them right after the NFL draft in April of 2013. Went to the mini camps there all through May and into June, and then went back to for training camp. I was still a part of the team. I was there for all the weeks of training camp and played in all 4 preseason games in the NFL, and then was cut in those final cuts right after the 4th preseason game before the season starts there. I was really expecting to be signed to the practice squad for the Chargers, and that didn't happen. And so I was sort of back home training. And at that time, in any rookie professional players' lives, you just every day you could get a phone call and you don't know what's going to happen. I was also sort of getting healthy again from an injured ankle, and so I was just kind of training, healing up, and waiting for the phone to ring. And when it did ring, it was my former coaches from Cornell, Kent Austin, of course, a household name in the CFL, and Tommy Condell, who had both been in the CFL previously in their coaching careers. Kent, of course, as a player in Saskatchewan, obviously, but they had come to Cornell after my freshman year. The coaching staff was let go, and Kent was hired to take over the program. And so I had played with them for the last 3 seasons in Cornell. After being cut in San Diego, they brought me up to Canada. We were halfway through the 2013 season, which Ticat fans will all remember as the Guelph season, while Tim Hortons Field was being constructed. And so I remember my first night coming to Hamilton to sort of be incorporated into the locker room the following morning. It was actually, I was driving up, and I remember driving down King Street to stay at the right downtown in Hamilton that night. But the Tim Hortons Field was a big steel skeleton at the time. It was that's the day that I had come up, is when they were putting up all the steel beams. And I kind of thought to myself, wow, this is kind of cool. To play here is obviously sort of, the first thing you know about the CFL is that it's a storied league. That was the 101st Grey Cup that we were getting ready to go to that year. And so that's cool. But then there's this brand new big stadium that's going up in this cool city that kind of looks like where I just came from an hour and a half ago, which is Buffalo, New York. There's some real similarities there. And so I thought, wow, that was really cool. So I ended up in Canada. That was about late September, I guess. Was on the practice squad for a week, and then the next week I played at home. Or I say home, it was at Guelph. Was my first CFL game against the Calgary Stampeders. So and then ended up playing that year in the Grey Cup in Regina, and played all the way through 2019. So I just kind of fell in love with it very quickly, and loved Hamilton and loved the CFL.
I'll tell you, and it really was an interesting ride for you to get to that point. And you quickly established yourself as a kind of guy that was reliable. And it's so amazing that it did kind of mirror your father, and that his journey to becoming a receiver was slightly different than yours. But the fact that you were this guy, not blessed with, blinding speed, but you were willing to go over the middle. You were willing to absorb contact. You could pick up first downs, move the chains, and every once in a while pop something deep. That's something you're proud about in terms of your career?
Yeah, I loved being able to do whatever was needed at the time. I mean, I remember plays, I lined up all over the offensive backfield at times, even in sort of a scat next to the quarterback at different times, and, all sorts of cool things that we did. And I just think the CFL, the game was suited for me as well. I think route running and sort of the art of route running and reading defenses, I just felt real natural here, and it didn't take me long to feel like this is kind of where my career was supposed to end up.
And those years were very productive for the Tiger Cats as well. And I know there were some ups and downs during your career. What was that like in terms of being on a team that was going to Grey Cups and teams that really had to scrap to get to the playoffs?
Yeah, it was like every season, Bob. I mean, you'll remember them as good as I can. It's like we got to the end of summer and we had an uphill battle, but then somehow we did it. We would be unlikely candidates for whatever reason after a slow start. And then end up making our way, and I played in a lot of East finals in my career, and of course the 3 Grey Cups, and there was something scrappy about it. I don't know why that was. It was as you look back over the CFL in that 2000 teens year, from 10 to 20. The Ticats won the most playoff games of all the East teams, but unfortunately we just didn't get a Grey Cup in one of those victories. But we had really fun stretches, especially in October into November. There was just such memorable games and seasons.
You talk about memories, and I think it's hard to ask you this question when I think we presumed your retirement. Actually, have you really officially retired? We still don't really know this.
I don't even know what it means to do that, but I never did anything official, so maybe technically I'm not retired yet. I don't know.
Was there a game, or was there a reception? Was there something that really sticks in your memory banks that you say, wow, I'm really proud of that, or something that just sticks in your head, win or loss maybe even?
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, I'd have to. They're all flooding into my brain right now as we talk. I mean, there's so many games and times that I just loved, and it's funny that you say even as a loss, but the Eastern Final in 2015, I guess it would be in Ottawa that we lost. I've always said that was my favorite game that we didn't win. I threw a long pass to Andy down from Mazzoli tossed it to me or pitched it to me, and I threw it to Andy. That was cool, and I scored a touchdown late in the game that brought us back, and that was, of course, when Hank Burris completed a really deep pass to Greg Ellingson against us for Ottawa, 2 former Ticats. That was a heartbreaking game, but had some great back and forth football. But then I remember all the wins. I mean, I just remember the 2014 Eastern Final at Tim Hortons Field was just an unbelievable match, us versus Montreal, and just a great way to go to the Grey Cup. And I remember, of course, all 3 losses. I'll never forget, of course, for the Grey Cups. Those are some harder memories to think back to, but. I remember scoring 3 touchdowns at BMO Field with Jeremiah Mazzoli, and one of those was that was the year Speedy B was just unbelievable in 2018 and 19, of course. But in 2018, we started really seeing Speedy B at his best, and that was a game where I remember Speedy B saying, hey, June Jones was our head coach. Like, all we got to do is have Task run this corner route, and I'm going to run the underneath. And we knew it was going to work. And that was I think I had 3 catches that game for 3 touchdowns, or 4 catches for 3 touchdowns, or something like that. And sometimes they come easy, and sometimes sometimes it feels like they're hard earned. But yeah, just such great teammates, great and I could go on for 2 hours to talk about the plays and the things that we did together.
You know, I'm glad you said the word teammates. I mean, unless you've played the game, and I've talked to so many of you guys, and it all comes right back to the same thing about, the wins, the losses, they come and they go. Sometimes the years come and go, but the teammates is what you remember the most, those relationships that you built. What's it like in the locker room? Can you kind of tell, for people that maybe never even played sports, maybe never played football, I think it's so different because there's some teams that are, or some sports that are individual, some that maybe have like basketball, 13, 14. Football, you may have 50 or more teammates. What's the locker room like?
Yeah, it is I think it's an incredibly unique sport in that way. And not only the number of guys, but I've always said it's interesting about football, the different kinds of guys, the different kinds of athletes, because you have your offensive linemen and all the way down to your defensive backs and wide receivers. And, whereas hockey, baseball, basketball, soccer, there's varying guys, but they all sort of have a look. A hockey player sort of looks like a hockey player, doesn't he? And in football, it is a melting pot of people, of individuals, and of course in the CFL of nationalities. And so that's it's just a wonderful experience. And I had just dozens of teammates who really truly feel like brothers to me. And I think there's something about that. You're going through something so hard, you have ups and downs, you have a weekly performance where you're being judged on it. But inside the locker room is sort of it's the intimate space where those people that are in that room are the only ones who really understand what the team is about, like, what the actual heart of the team is like. And we, Bubba, you and I, with the different jobs that we do, sort of broadcasting for this sport now, we get a sense for it, and we think that we have like an idea as to what the team is like and sort of the makeup of that. But it's the guys in the locker room that have a truly intimate knowledge of that heart of the team, and it just forms bonds that are tighter and different than in the other areas of our lives. It's closer to family than to anything else, I guess I'd say.
At some point of every person's sporting career is the end, the retirement. Sometimes forced, sometimes injuries. I'm going to believe that injuries kind of played a part in the reason why you stepped away from the game. When you get to that point, and then your whole life, because you've spent so many years in the locker room, being told what to do, schedules, coaches, then your whole world opens up into that second life. What's that transition been like for you?
Yeah, mine was interesting. 2019, when we were the best regular season in Ticats history, for me, I was just, you could close your eyes and point to me, and I probably had an injury wherever you were pointing. It just was and I remember teammates going through the same thing in other seasons. It's just, you get into an unfortunate groove of injuries where you're trying to get one healthy, and then you come back and either you hurt that again or something else gets injured while you're trying to get back to full go. So I definitely had that issue. I could walk you through from the start of training camp to the Grey Cup, the different things I was dealing with, but there were multiple. And so, that was tough. I had in December after that season, I had surgery on my pinky finger and had to get something reset in there and wired together. And I was dealing with the healing of the other stuff and trying to decide what I was going to do. And if I could get healthy enough and train well enough to protect myself and kind of try to get my body right to play. And then sure enough, we all know what happened in the spring of 2020. And in that same offseason, I started selling real estate. I joined my brother, and we made a real estate team here in Buffalo, where I'm still, we're working together still. And my wife gave birth to our twin sons, our twin boys. So we had my oldest, like I said, his name's Steele, and then Cohen and Levon were born in the spring of 2020. So, life kind of came at us quick there. And then when the nail in the coffin for my career in reality was the season getting canceled into 2020, and COVID canceling, robbing CFL fans of a year of football. There was nothing I could do. I wasn't gonna be able to do 18 months of waiting to get back to play when I was kind of ramping up a new career in real estate and family growing and, already sort of struggling with the injuries as well. So that kind of did it for me. and it was fortunate or unfortunate. I mean, you could say I would have loved to play longer. I certainly would have. I sort of would still love to play now. But also, it's almost like the decision was made for me. And that's a real hard part for a lot of athletes, too, just not knowing if you're making the right decision. There was only one decision for me. There's no way I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have waited 18 months, both, just you're trying to make a living and provide for your family. And also just, your life is progressing. And so whatever, that's the way it goes. And as I was 2 years into real estate, then Scott Mitchell, Matt Afneck gave me a call, and we were starting the Ticats audio network. And so I've had the privilege of, this is my 4th year broadcasting and being the color analyst for the Ticats audio network. And to be honest, Bubba, like it just totally softened the blow of retirement for me, because I still felt like I was a part of it, although probably much less of an important part than I was able to be as a member in the locker room. But I still love being, calling Tim Hortons Field home and calling the Ticats sort of my family. And so it's myself and my family, my wife and boys, and we just love that sort of the Hamilton's still part of our lives.
Well, I hear it in your broadcast. I really do, whether it's you and I talking after a game in a post-game situation or during the call of a game with RJ. When I hear I know something good has happened when I hear, wow. Wow. Like everyone you pop in a little wow. I'm like, ooh, so that was really good, right? And it's got to be good in some ways, too. And this is just the way I would take it, I think. When we do talk to the players and you're part of the broadcast and you're with me and you say, hey, it's Luke, Tasker, whatever, they know who you are, right? And that's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, when we interview the players after, and it's nice to. I remember being the player on the phone in the locker room, and the game just ended, and they hand you a telephone, and you really have no idea who you're talking to. Sometimes it's like you don't they're not as tuned into the media as we all have the ability to be. So I do like to let them know who it is, and yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy that I'm still invited to come back. That's for sure. It's a fun stay. My wife and boys have already been up to 2 of the games this year. There's only been 1, and they've been to 2. They came to the preseason game as well. But it's just a fun thing, man. And RJ Broadhead is just an absolute world-class broadcaster. So he's kind of been an education for me. Just watching him work, and with yourself, Bubba, I think we have a great crew. So it's kind of been a blast to see it. And I gotta say, wins are fun for everybody involved. The losses hurt the worst for the players. So I don't carry it quite as heavy. It doesn't hit quite as deep where the Ticats are unable to get a win. And so you can kind of, you can get to sleep a little bit easier. When I played and I was a part of the loss, it was you lose a little more sleep.
But Luke, you're so correct. Like when you and I and RJ and like we walk out of there daily, Fantus a couple years ago, like when they lose, we're depressed. Like it's a weird feeling. And unfortunately, we've been depressed. Maybe not completely with the 0-2 start. That was a tough one in Calgary, but it kind of. You could kind of see it coming, but then we got set up real good in the home opener against the Rough Riders, looking so good, up 20-7 after the first half, and then the 33-30 loss. From your perspective, what happened in that loss to the Rough Riders in a game that it looked like the Tiger Cats were in full control?
Yeah, well, Trevor Harris, I think you can't talk about that game without giving a little bit of credit. They've twice in this early young season, the Rough Riders have come back from a 13-point deficit 2 times. That's really something. It takes a lot to be able to put drives like that together in the fourth quarter. I just want to mention Bo Levi Mitchell in both these games, because I think he's playing really good football, especially at the home opener against Sask. I think we're seeing Bo Levi Mitchell at a very high level. Unfortunately, there was enough plays out there for the Riders to make in that second half. I think, Bubba, what I'm kind of hoping, and I can kind of feel this from my own experience in seasons when we got off to slow starts as a player, the players are in the locker room, the right players with enough to make a difference and to make some of these big plays happen. It's going to be some timing of some things, and then of course eliminating some big mistakes, and that will happen. You've got athletes enough to learn and grow to the point where you can start doing that.
Got to bring it up, and I think it's specific to you. I can think about a time throughout your season, I think it was 2016, you were having an unbelievable season with Zach Collaros. I mean, the numbers were huge. He gets injured, you get injured, Fantus gets injured. 2017 comes around, and you get off to a slow start. And there was some concern about, where I have injuries finally caught up to a guy that was a smaller bodied like player. And then you go off and you had a career year. If you can kind of mirror that with what Tim White is going to, I think people need to remember this is the guy that's a two-time team MVP, multiple-time All-Star, but you're remembering the drops because they have played a factor. What's it like facing that kind of adversity when you know you're a good ball player, and everyone, at least on the team, knows you're a good ball player?
Yeah, it takes the mental toughness of an athlete to give yourself a little grace too. You don't get anywhere by just beating yourself up every day with things like this. And Tim's got to remind himself of those things that you just mentioned. And all the greats have gone through a spell of something like this. There's not one that hasn't. There's not anybody who hasn't been through a dip of adversity, whether it was controllable or uncontrollable. It's just it just plagues sports. And you can't have something as great and as loved as sports and as football without it being hard and brutal and punishing. So Tim will bounce back. I mean, he's an unbelievable athlete, and he's made plays again. Bub, I think it's you who brought up the play that was sort of a turning point in Tim's career to right now, which was that big drive at the end in Calgary when they won in Calgary. I think it would be in 2022.
Yes.
And that, Tim White sort of established himself at that time, and he'll make those plays again, I'm sure, and he'll be better for having overcome something like this. But and you know what? As sort of a fan, it's better to have that drop in week 2 than it is in week 12 or week 18 or last week of the regular season. So, you learn from that. You secure the ball and you get back up. And I'm excited to see Tim White, take the field and be better.
I don't think there is a soul that's either played for the man or played for his defense or been a part of his circle that would not say that Coach Orlando Steinauer is not a fine man, not a fine guy to talk to. Probably more so in your place, be taught under as a coach. But he's been replaced, and he's gone up to the booth, or at least the booth, the president's booth, alongside with the owners right now. And Coach Milanovic has come in. Are there any differences that you've seen? I know it's early right now, 2 games in the short preseason, but any differences? And what do you like about Coach Milanovic, Scott Milanovic, at this point?
Yeah, and I had 3 years of the Coach O show with Luke Tasker on the Ticats Audio Network too, and Coach Orlando Steinauer holds a special place in my heart for the people I've had a chance to work with, and I had him in many different capacities as a coach. So he's a world-class human being. And Scott Milanovic, it is interesting. So first of all, it's different to have an offensive head coach and a defensive head coach. Just the team gets structured a little differently. Sort of maybe it's kind of intangible. I don't really know how to describe it. It's just practice kind of runs different. Team meetings feel a little bit different. In 2019, Coach O's first year as head coach. First of all, we were just grossly talented, and so we were just really great, and we were ready. We were primed to win a lot of football games, but we sort of had a warrior mentality, and it just we couldn't be defeated. It felt like, and that's a great thing about Orlando's team. And though I can't speak to Milanovic being a player, I'm liking what we're seeing offensively. I think it's pretty. I like the multifaceted personnel groups. I'm liking the run game. We've only had two games as a sample, but the run game has been effective at times, and I would love to see a continued balance of that. and getting these big receivers down the field. So I'm really excited. And I think I don't know what you think, Bubba. I think Scott Milanovich is great in an interview. I think he's fairly candid, which makes things fun. And I'm excited to see more of his team.
Yeah, he's definitely more, I would say, and again, I hate to compare, but he's definitely a little bit more of a straight shooter. I always thought Orlando protected his guys, and that was the way he approached things, where Coach Scott's going to let you know, too many penalties, too many turnovers. Yeah. He lets you know. Hey, looking forward to this Sunday. And I think you and I, and RJ and Daly kind of talked about it on the post-game show, is that maybe the best medicine after a tough loss like that at home is to go into Regina and ruin their home opener.
Yeah, well, it's a great opportunity. Regina's pretty tough to play. Mosaic's not the easiest thing ever, but why not, man? And to kind of, I always love the back-to-backs because your prep is a little different. You're not really, I mean, at least for me, I wasn't looking back over the last 3 games, and of course we're early in the season, so the week of prep is a little different anyways. Nobody really cares about watching film from preseason games, right? So you kind of only have 2 games anyways. But whenever you have a back-to-back, all I ever watched was our last week's game with that team that we're about to play again. So and you can watch it just again and again, and you can see each play in your mind's eye, and knowing that you're going to see the same defenses, the same guys, or the counters that they're going to make to what they did. And so I think the back-to-back is an exciting thing in the CFL that's sort of in the football world kind of unique to us. And I as a player going out west, it can be a lot of fun, this trip to Regina, and there's nothing more fun than winning. So excited to call this one this weekend.
Hey, looking at the league right now, I got to start it with one team. If there was any doubt about the Montreal Alouettes, that's now 11 straight wins with that huge win in front of a great crowd at Molson Stadium against an up-and-coming Red Blacks team. They're for real. Like, I don't know why I'm saying that about the Grey Cup champions, but Cody Fajardo looks good. The defense looked good. They are rolling.
Yeah, well, they were doubted for the first half of last season, right? And I probably would have been included in that. I mean, they didn't appear to everyone that they had a recipe for a Grey Cup team, and sure enough, they 6 months later they hoisted the cup. So now I'm not surprised. I mean, now they've kept this thing rolling, and they seem to be pretty resilient. So the East is sort of looking a little different, than it's taking new shape, and so. We'll see. For the Ticats, it's so tough. It's 2 wins that were close to being able to have gone the other way, both of them. And so, you're going to have to find ways to make that change. But it is a long year, and it'll be excited to see some East to East matchups.
What's crazy for me right now, when you look at the statistics, the fact that the East is 4-2 versus the West, and I know it's real early, but generally it's the other way around when it comes to the West teams versus the East teams. Luke, one of the things that I think I've discussed this with you. When we first started to work together, it was like kind of fanboy for me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like working alongside the son of like Steve Tasker, like, and I'm a lifelong Bills fan. Like, there's a Bills divisional AFC playoff game at San Diego where they lost, and with the final couple of minutes of the second, I think it was Jimmy Smith caught a 60-yard bomb. I started bawling. I was like probably 12 years old. I was crying, and I was hooked ever since the Super Bowl years. So to be able to say that to you, that I saw your dad's whole career, the special teams ace that he was, the sort of kinship that he built with Jim Kelly as the second half of his career as a receiver, it was so amazing to me. I guess where I'm going with this, why isn't your dad in the Hall of Fame, for crying out loud?
I know you're not alone, Bubba, and it's actually funny. I think that Canada is full of Steve Tasker fans. I hear it all the time, and people seem to share that sentiment, and I certainly think he is too. He's the first to say that he doesn't care, or he's not heartbroken about it, at least. But I think there's a massive group of football fans across North America that think that he should be, or a ton of people, Bo, that assume that he already is. They just they say like, oh yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame, right? He must be. So So whatever, whichever way it is, I hope that he does, and many others do as well.
I certainly hope so as well too. Actually, now that I've never asked you this question. Who's bigger, you or your dad, at your playing heights?
Yeah, I'm taller. I played a little taller than him. Actually was just about the same weight. He was an unbelievably strong player. I mean, he was very, very quick. I got some of the long distance genes from my mom's side of the family, unfortunately. So.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been fabulous talking football with you, Luke, and I again get the good fortune of being able to do it in a couple of days as the Rough Riders host the Tiger Cats in week number 3 of the CFL season. Thank you so much for talking and being honest about your experience, and looking forward to joining you on Sunday. Appreciate your time, partner.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'll see you there.
All right. Folks, that is your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking to folks who are getting it done on and off the field. If you do know of an athlete, team, or book to promote the Sportsline podcast, want to hear from you, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, please comment. Also, check out all of the informative podcasts CHCH have to offer. For the talented, extraordinary people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you next week.